Hello there, and welcome to This Day in History for March 18th. March 18th is the 77th day of the year, 78th in leap years in the Gregorian calendar, with 288 days remaining until the end of the year. Today's word is one you might have a challenge fitting into conversation, but it's the sort of word where you want to say, "Oh yeah, good to know, there's a word for that." Today's word is antimetabole. This is a noun which means a repetition of words or an idea in a reverse order. For example, to fail to plan is to plan to fail. Interestingly, the etymology of this word is ultimately from Greek words that mean change and a throw. Change, a throw. Earliest documented use of this word is 1589. Now I'd like to take a moment to mention that links to my research are included in the show notes, and to ask you to go ahead and click that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, stay to the end for those outtakes, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Remember that you can share this video with others by email or in your social media. And with that, we're going to start in the year 1314, when Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and final Grand Master of the Knights Templar, was burned at the stake on March 18, 1314. On March 18, 1766, after 4 months of widespread protest in America, the British Parliament had the good sense to repeal the Stamp Act. This was some of that taxation without representation that you might have heard about in your elementary American history classes. If they still teach history in schools, I don't know. If not, aren't you glad you're watching me right now so you can learn about this? This is the birthday of American politician and lawyer and 22nd and 24th President of the United States, Grover Cleveland, born March 18, 1837. He lived to the age of 71. On March 18, 1852, in New York City, Henry Wells and William G. Fargo, along with some investors, launched their namesake business, Wells Fargo. They started out as a shipping and banking company and are today one of the world's largest banks. March 18, 1858 is the birthday of German engineer Rudolph Diesel, who invented the diesel engine. He lived to the age of 55, and as an aside, there is to this day some question as to whether he was murdered or committed suicide, went overboard on a boat trip. Hawaii signed a treaty with the United States granting exclusive trade rights on March 18, 1874. This is the birthday of American mystic and psychic Edgar Casey, born March 18, 1877. He lived to the age of 67. On March 18, 1911, Irving Berlin copyrighted what came to be the biggest pop song of the early 20th century, Alexander's Ragtime Band. This was way before radio, so how did it come to be so popular? Well, it was sheet music, and one could play it on the piano. A lot of families had musical instruments in their homes, including but not limited to pianos, and it was less complex of a musical piece than most other ragtime pieces of the day, so it was certainly easier for the average person to play. Sales of this music topped 1.5 million copies in the first 18 months after its publication. There's certainly a link to it in the description, so you can hear it if you haven't heard it before, or you can hear it again if you have. Mohandas Gandhi was sentenced to 6 years in prison for civil disobedience on March 18, 1922. And we talked about this the other day. This is the birthday of American race car driver and businessman Andy Granatelli, born March 18, 1923. He was born over in Dallas, Texas. He lived to the age of 90. On March 18, 1925, the worst tornado in U.S. history hit, and it wasn't even in Oklahoma or Kansas or Texas. No, this one bulldozed right through Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. What came to be known as the Tri-State Tornado killed 695 people, left 13,000 injured, and $17 million in damages. Wow, that is a lengthy track, 219-mile track. It was on the ground for over 3 hours. What a monster. I'm glad they're not all like that one. Holy cow. This is the birthday of American actor and director Peter Graves, born on March 18, 1926. He lived to the age of 83. Henry and Clement Studebaker opened a blacksmith shop in 1852, and before long they became the leading builder of horse-drawn carriages and even supplied carriages to the U.S. Army during the Civil War. They came into building cars around the turn of the century, first under the name of Studebaker Garford, and then under their very own name Studebaker in 1913. They continued to make wagons until 1920. Studebaker acquired Pierce Arrow in the late 1920s and sold a number of cars, but the Depression hit them hard. And on March 18, 1933, Studebaker was forced to file bankruptcy. The company was able to recover somewhat and did start making cars again, but eventually they transitioned out of the auto business for good in 1966. The Hawaii Admission Act was signed into law on March 18, 1959. This was an act to provide for the admission of the state of Hawaii to the Union, dissolving the territory of Hawaii and establishing the state of Hawaii as the 50th state in the Union. Hawaii's statehood became effective later in the year, and perhaps we'll talk about that again when it happens. By golly, this is the birthday of James McMurtry, born March 18, 1962, right here in Fort Worth. One might describe his genre as a range of American rock and folk rock Americana. He plays with a group called the Heartless Bastards. He first came to our attention when we went to see Leon Russell in concert. And there was a song playing over the intercom. We'd never heard this song before, but we caught a few of the lyrics, and I Googled those lyrics, and that's how we learned that the song that we heard that night was called Choctaw Bingo. We found it funny because we've certainly known people like the ones he describes in that song and have actually been to some of the places he mentions in that song. I've placed a link in the show notes to Choctaw Bingo, but be advised, it does contain some adult subject matter that you might not like to have to explain to your children. Well, doggone it, the Russians beat us again in the space race when cosmonaut Alexei Leonov became the first person to walk in space on March 18, 1965. On March 18, 1968, the U.S. Congress repealed the requirement for gold reserve to back U.S. currency. And this is a good day for birthdays. This is the birthday of American rapper, producer, and actress Queen Latifah, born March 18, 1970, and comedian Dane Cook, born March 18, 1972. On March 18, 1990, the Germans in the German Democratic Republic voted in the first democratic elections in the former communist dictatorship. Also on March 18th, in 1990, 12 paintings, collectively worth around $500 million, were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, in the largest art theft in U.S. history. As of the time I'm writing this report in 2020, none of the paintings have been recovered. These are not works of art that someone could just stick in a new picture frame and hang in their living room without getting someone's attention. The museum is offering a $10 million reward for information leading to the art's recovery. And I think that's going to do it for us today. As always, links to my research are included in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And feel free to share if you found this video interesting or informative. While you're here, check out my other channel, 8 Susquehanna. There's a link to that in the show notes. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Okay, we gotta make that go to sleep. We'll do that in a minute. And we'll probably leave that part out. So many mistakes. We're not gonna go into all that. Okay. I don't know how all that's gonna go together, or if it's even gonna make it to the video. We'll just see. That's not gonna go. Probably cut all that out. That'll all be laying on the cutting room floor. So I'll just do that whole thing over. That might not make it into the video, we'll see. Changing it up.